The Birkies taught me a lot. And I think it's that personal growth comes from challenges. Like we learn the most in the times where we feel the worst. And I know that Nordic can be very difficult and very physically challenging. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about your worldview, and you learn a lot about how to move forward.
Welcome to the Birch Legacies podcast. We are sharing stories celebrating the motivation, the perseverance, and the lifestyle choices necessary to reach the status of Birchlegger. That is, skiers who have completed 20 or more Birkies, Korteloppets, or a combination of both. We would love to hear from Birchleggers young and old who have a story to tell about what keeps them coming back year after year. Information about appearing on this podcast is in the podcast notes. Hi, folks, and welcome back to Birch Legacies, a podcast about Birchleggers and the Birkebeiner ski race. And my guest today is Kitty Earl-Tornianen, and she is an outstanding skier. You're going to hear a little about how she gets ready for the Birkebeiner each year, but I want to welcome you to the podcast, Kitty, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Kitty, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and give our listeners a little background about your how you got into skiing.
I'm originally from Wisconsin, and I was introduced to Nordic skiing at a young age, but I didn't do any. My sister used to kick in the classic skis with the wool knickers and the tall socks across the street in the UW Arboretum. I grew up in that area of Madison. Okay. It wasn't until I moved away to Alaska, came back to Madison to do some investigating about what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I was introduced to the world of Nordic. It was a scrappy little group of people that were Nordic skiing in Madison, Wisconsin at the time. It must have been late 90s. We would drive in our cars to Elver Park, freeze our bums off in the freezing car, jump out and do the best we could to get around the loops as long as we could. It was really, really hard, and I was hooked because it was hard. As were the people I skied with. And we have all become lifelong skiers, although we are widely dispersed at this point. I did my first Birkie shortly thereafter, thinking, oh yeah, I run marathons, I can do a Birkie. And it was extremely humbling.
So what year did you do your first Birkie?
I was thinking back, I know it was late 90s, based on when I moved back to Madison, maybe 97, something around.
Let's talk about that, the training. So you, from what I've gathered, you're not just a skier. You do other sports as well. You do running and things. Tell us about that.
Mm-hmm. Running has been sort of a continuous part of my daily life / weekly life as I'm getting older. For decades. My dad was a runner, avid runner.
Okay.
He got up every morning, ran around the loop of the Arboretum in Madison, and I was inspired really by him. As time went on and I went to college, I just started running to move my body and feel good. And then after college, I started registering for races and realizing I liked it. It has continued to be a very, very easy to access sport, and it helps reset so much of our mental and physical well-being. And the bar is so low. You strap on a pair and you get out the door. Yeah. From there, I launched into some trail running and some ultra trail running, which I absolutely love. I just love getting in deep into the woods. Because I am aging, I do feel that my body likes it when I do a variety of different things. Mm-hmm. So then I do a fair amount of biking and bike commuting, and I really have come to deeply love open water swimming.
Oh, really? Okay.
Not that I do it very often. I probably do it once or twice a week when the season is around, but it is a very restorative type of active recovery type of thing for me.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I take it you do it in lakes in the area. Now, do you live in Minneapolis now?
I live in St. Paul.
St. Paul, okay.
But we're very close to the Mississippi. Okay. So I can get to Lake Nokomis, which is just across the bridge pretty quickly. Yeah. And Nokomis is, not the cleanest of lakes, but you do what you can when you're living in the city.
So when you ski or when you swim across the lake, are you swimming like straight segments? Are you going across the middle of the lake or along the shore?
Well, it's a formal setup thing with Minneapolis Parks and Rec. And so they actually set up a triangle. You go across and then you make a diagonal and then another and then across again. It's like a right triangle.
Okay.
And it's a nice long, it takes a good chunk of time to do that. And you can
Okay.
do as many as you'd like in the times that they have open water swim, that you wear a special swim cap, and there are people that can rescue you if you need to in kayaks alongside.
Oh, so it's a time that it's almost like having a lifeguard. They have kayakers out alongside
Yes.
the
Yeah.
course. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. It sounds like you're describing something very similar to how a sailing regatta might go, around the triangle, get the
Hmm.
different segments.
Yeah.
Do you have a time of year that you go, okay, I need the water temperature to be up to a certain amount, or when do you go?
Um, they actually don't do open water until it's kind of warmish, and I
Okay.
I prefer colder. I
Yeah.
don't like really warm water. I have tried. My mom has a place in Bayfield, so I have tried to do it in the down in the harbor, close to the harbor in Bayfield, and I've gotten very, very cold. Ironically, I can do it off of Madeline Island at Big Bay State Park, because you can go along the shore the whole time and you can
Yeah.
sight that way. You really have to be able to sight,
Yeah.
and it has to be a long enough path that you feel like you're not turning every 25 meters. I don't
Yeah.
really like turning so frequently.
Interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah. Isn't there an open water event that goes in up by Bayfield?
Yes. Yes, it's called Point to La Point, and
Point
it's
to La
in
Point.
July, and I've never
Yeah.
done it. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not, I was never a competitive swimmer, and I never raced. I did triathlons a little bit, but like it is more of a uh, therapeutic for
Yeah.
me to do
Well,
this.
it's interesting. You've mentioned that a couple of times, and I love the fact that you take this idea, and we're kind of focused on the podcast about the Berkey, but I'm very interested in all the things other people do. I'm sure listeners are coming from all these different places, and I love to get perspectives of people that are, what are the other things you do, and you don't have to be great at any of them, even the Berkey.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
so talk. Let's go back to the Berkey a little bit. You mentioned you live in St. Paul. Where do you usually train when you're in town?
I train wherever I can get to good snow. I
Okay.
do train with the group. I am a Lemon, which is a
Yeah.
Loppet group of older folks. So we do our workouts at Worth on Wednesday mornings
Yeah,
before.
I see you quite often there.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Okay. That's
yeah.
good to know. So Wednesday mornings at 6:30 a.m. And I usually get there earlier because I got to skedaddle. As soon as it
Mhm.
ends, I'm supposed to be at work like right away.
Okay.
Um, and I work in downtown Minneapolis, so it's a little nerve-wracking getting there. But Wednesday mornings at Worth, I really, really appreciate Battle Creek and the snowmaking that has taken place there. It
Mhm.
is such a lovely alternative. And I really like H. Wyland. We call it H. Wyland because we have Highland Nine Hole in
Yeah,
the neighborhood, and Highland Nine Hole is awesome if we have
yeah,
natural snow. So I've been there a couple of times in the last week. I'll go to natural snow if I can find it, if it's around. If not, it's usually worth Battle Creek or Highland for me. Elm Creek is pretty far away.
yeah. So, so H. Wyland, that's the Bloomington one, or is H.
Correct, the
Wyland?
park
Okay.
reserve, H. Wyland Park
But the
Reserve.
Highland that you're talking about, that's where that's one of my cross training things in the summer is I golf golf
Yeah,
there. I use it
yeah.
for its original intention, but actually, tell me about their trail there because that's kind of a cool little terrain that you've got there.
At the Nine Hole.
Yeah,
It's awesome. It's a 4K loop. It's gentle ups and downs. It's not super flat. It's gentle though.
yeah,
It is some nice corners, and it can be windy and cold if it's
yeah.
windy out because it's so open.
Right.
It's really, really nice to have. And as of 2 years ago, they opened Highland National, which is
Okay.
the
Across the
other
road.
side, the other
Yeah.
golf course. And that one I went to last Sunday, and they cut some more climbs into it. So I
Okay.
was a little fatigued after that one. So that's great. I mean, it was
Yeah.
really neat. I drove by it today, and there were so many people out. I love that it's
Yeah.
accessible to so many
Yeah.
people.
So when you train, for the skiing, the
Mhm.
Lemon Group, it's an acronym, isn't it? Is it an
Yes,
acronym? Yeah.
it's Loppet Elite Nordic Masters on skis.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. And so those folks, I see they're pretty serious. That's one reason I don't join is I just want to go slow when I want to go slow. But you guys are
Mhm.
always kind of out there doing your loops and working hard. And I appreciate the effort it takes. And that's why you're in the elite wave and I'm in wave two. So that's okay. So tell me about, kind of what are your goals when you set out to start training and then when you approach the Birkebeiner, what are kind of the way you think about it mentally to get yourself ready to step up and meet the challenge of being in the elite wave?
I think the number one thing is year round. It's a year round effort to maintain the elite wave. It is roller skiing and once a week, and then towards the fall, twice a week in the summer.
Okay.
And then, embedding some L3, L4s as often as that. So we do that. We do the Lemons workouts Wednesday mornings in the summer
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
That one has a little bit of intensity. And then if I like in the fall, I really like the duration, the long, slow, easy out at Afton.
Mhm.
But that also has a lot of elevation. So it's not actually as easy as you think it would be. A lot of my training in the summer, the last few years, has been more running intensive.
Mhm.
Um, and the intervals that I do with running, I think, give me a really good, strong cardiac base,
Mhm.
cardio base. And racing in the summer, I like to run races. And I haven't ever done a roller ski race, but I think that getting in 3 hour over distance stuff in the summer is helpful. That's where that starts. And then in the fall, it's a tiny little bit of rest, maybe a little more roller skiing focused, less running, and then launching into getting on snow as soon as possible, starting really easy, just starting
Mhm.
really easy and getting the body reacclimated. Our head coach is Piotr Bednarski, and
Yeah.
he's really wise about starting with L3s, getting
Mhm.
us L3s and then eventually to L4s. And then if it's cold like it is now, he'll back off of L4s. He'll say, that's not okay for your lungs. We're not going to do
Yeah.
any L4s. We're just going to stick with L3s. So having that type of a guide is really, really helpful. Having the group, I would say having a group to work out
Yeah.
with changes the way it feels.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's really
Yeah.
fun to sort of beat yourself up a bit.
Well, it makes it, they're doing the same, so that's good.
Mhm.
So that's cool. So you do, I mean, no, it sounds like number one, year round, keep the
Mhm.
variety up. Roller skiing is something that, I used to do, but I don't do anymore because of the fear of falling and so on. Do you kind of concern yourself with that? Do you gear up? Do you have you're careful about where you do it?
I sometimes, like this summer I did not, but sometimes I'll roller commute to work, and that's not super fun because I do have to go on sidewalks.
Yeah. Ooh.
And I have to be very careful with
Yeah.
that, and actually even railroad tracks. But I have to step around those or
Yeah.
step over those.
Okay.
I think, yeah, I don't, there's definitely parts that I don't want to go to. I want it to be a smooth surface. And I have had more falls on roller skis that have caused damage, like you're saying, like my hands. I feel like I've really injured my hands quite a few times, including this last summer, based on like your hands are strapped into the poles and you hit a stick
Yeah.
or something and you just go down
Yeah.
and it's painful. It
Yeah.
really hurts.
Yeah.
So I hear you. There's a fair number of people that don't really enjoy roller skiing unless they're in
Hmm.
a pretty safe environment. I feel like Afton is nice because you can see where you're going
Yeah.
from.
Long stretches. Yeah.
Yeah. But what you have to contend with there is some of the drivers don't like us. They
Hmm.
don't like the roller skiers. I'd say we are primarily on River Road here. We have been in neighborhoods in the past, but it feels like we've veered away from those. I did like some of the neighborhood loops we used to do.
Let's talk a little bit about like when you're approaching, as we are now approaching race time. What has changed in the last week or two or three, and what do you look forward to in the coming week leading up to the Birkebeiner?
As you know, it's so different than training for a running marathon because we have such a compressed time frame. And so
Hmm.
all of our races are stacked. If you're
Yeah.
if you're racing, you're busy like most weekends of the winter
Hmm.
doing a race. I feel extremely grateful that the Mora Vasaloppet was able to hold an event and that I was able to do a 48K because last year doing the 50K at the Birkie it was just like going from 30, the longest we could do was 30K at any event, and that was in the early season, and then it
Yeah.
all shortened thereafter. Okay, so what's changed for me in the last week is after the 48K, definitely restful. I did a little bit of an active recovery ski the next day, very, very easy. A couple of rest days, a little bit of movement, a little bit of strength. We do a Wednesday morning workout, which I did do. He switched it to the evening actually because it was so cold Wednesday
Yeah.
morning. So
Yeah.
it was better for our lungs. Rest, more recovery, more thinking about mindset
Hmm.
for the day of the race,
Yeah.
the week leading into the race, and trying to just build on the positives. I mean, it's real easy for me to find the hardest part about what went wrong this year,
Yeah.
what's not coming together, and I feel that I have to go back to what my strengths are and be confident with who I am and what I bring to this. And
Yeah.
actually, the other thing, which was just so awesome, is it's the thing that Jesse always talks about, getting back to the joy
Yeah.
of it. And so yesterday I did a ski on natural snow, and it was like in the wilderness, and it was quiet, and it was just so amazing to just be back in that environment and say to myself, "This is why I just love it so much." So
Oh,
trying to get back to that as I approach something that can be, there's definitely, as you're getting older, you just say to yourself, how much longer can I try to stay competitive?
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know when it's going to end. I still really enjoy it, but I am aware that every time I race the Birkie, and say, actually most years, even though I'm in the elite wave, every year there's some wave 4, 3, and 2 females that catch me. And so my
Hmm.
number drops. And so I just have to be prepared
Yeah.
for that might be an eventual outcome. So there's a little bit of stress around that, like how much do I care? Should I care? That whole
Yeah.
internal dialogue
Absolutely.
that you just don't know if it's, I mean, I really do enjoy skiing in the elite wave of the women, and I enjoy feeling all of the things that you feel when you're doing it, and being done with it. But I don't know if it's going to last for very long.
Yeah. Well, it's so wonderful that you're sharing that so honestly, because I think that is, anyone that is reaching Birchlegger status, you have to be a certain age, basically do the math. I think I was probably 42 or 43 when I reached Birchlegger because I started when I was young. And at that point, things are starting to go different, and there's family stresses, and there's things that balancing in your life, and so it's part of it. And it's the first few guests I've had on the podcast have been older, and so they have been sharing kind of how things have changed, even thinking about doing the Cordy because the Berkey doesn't work. But
Yeah.
it's interesting and fun for me to hear a person in the elite wave having kind of that. Well, two things. Let me just say one of them. I loved that you talked about the joy and why do I do this and what do I love about this, but also having that kind of internal little battle going on with, okay, how much do I care that younger kid went by me or whatever it was, and so I appreciate both sides of that.
Mhm.
So now, as you approach race day, can you talk a little bit about diet? What kind of things do you do to make sure you're really prepared to your body to perform?
Well, this is a really good question for me right now. I did lose my energy at the Korteloppet
Hmm.
last weekend. It was a four loops of 12K, and by the fourth loop I started to bonk. And I haven't bonked in a super duper long time. Like I try to do the best I can with nutrition and staying on top of that. So it was a really awesome reminder, and that's why these races are amazing, because you can learn things from each one of them.
Hmm.
Something positive, something negative. And what I was reminded of is that the carb intake starts like a week before. Yeah, I gotta be really focused on trying to get in a lot of carbohydrates, but primarily 3 days before. But I want to just be cognizant of it now and get those stores in place and not expend myself too much and not get too agitated when I'm not moving too much. Just settle and know that it'll be called upon. My body will. So a lot of deliberate carbohydrate ingestion. I tend to like balanced diets. I tend to like everything, a little bit of everything. So it does feel like not quite my how I would choose to eat, but I know it works.
How about race morning?
Morning of the race, it's kind of dialed in. It's either multigrain bread with natural peanut butter and bananas or oatmeal with peanut butter
Hmm.
and bananas, and
Hmm.
a little bit of coffee with cream and a
There
ton
you
of
go.
water. And actually, I have started. I had a coach this past summer for some of the running goals I had. I've started. I didn't think. You hear so many things from so many different people, but I've started to take a gel before the race, and I definitely carry gels.
Hmm.
That's the thorn in my side with racing is I'm inefficient with taking the energy during the race, and
Hmm.
it's been a burden to try to get these things keep them warm enough that you can actually swallow them and get them out of your belt and things like that. It's not easy.
Yeah. I was just thinking about this as you were talking about all the things. If you look at my Strava, it looks like a mountain range with a peak at every Birkie. And I'm
Yeah,
guessing, I don't know if you use Strava, but I bet you yours is flatter because you have so many other events that you do.
maybe I don't use Strava.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But you get the idea that you're more fit year round, and each particular event is probably not quite as for me. It's kind of monumental. It's the literally the peak of my year in terms of training and trying to reach goals. So when you look at the Berkey itself, is where does it fit into your year of training? Is it a main thing, or is it one of the many main things that you do?
No, it is definitely a main thing. The problem with the Nordic season is there's so many unpredictable factors, and
Yeah.
like we just talked about, it's a compressed season. So everything, if it were a sport like running, you start training 4 months before the event.
Mhm.
You get to your max mileage 3 weeks before the event, you taper. You do a couple of races to sort of check in and calibrate how what are my expectations? Am I on track? Am I off? With ski training, it's like week one, week two. I mean, you've got like,
Yeah.
okay, so we get on snow around Thanksgiving, if we're lucky, and it's
Yeah.
usually man-made and it's usually a tiny patch, but it's still getting on snow. By Christmas, we're trying to ski like more regularly.
Yeah.
Already, yeah, like this year on New Year's Day, I think it is. I did the Battle Creek 50K. Did you hear about that one?
No, no, I
So
didn't.
like it was kind of like a season opener shakeup. It was timed, but it was not intense. There were definitely people who raced it as if it were. It was extremely cold, extremely challenging because it was a skate race on a very hilly course. Yeah, I think we did 17 loops of
Oh my.
anyway, it was so fun because it was so hard and we were all suffering and we were just like, yep, we're getting through it, but there was no pressure. So that
Hmm.
was a really nice opener. But then, of course, then you have, so that's January 1st. And then the next thing is Sealy Classic. So there's just Sealy Classic, then Ski to Ski, then City of Lakes, then Laura Vasa. These are all in such a short time
Yeah.
frame that your recovery is probably suboptimal and your performance, you're training into performance. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Right,
You're
right.
racing. That's what I mean. You're race training or whatever they call it.
Exactly. Yeah, you're racing. Your races are training.
Yes.
And then, so do you point to the Berkey as the key one, or is there
Oh, for sure.
another race coming?
Well, I love the Birkie as like the best effort. Who knows what the day will bring? There's so many things that can change.
Hmm.
I do quite enjoy the Pepsi challenge the week after because I used to pressure myself more than I do now about the Birkie. Now it's more of a known entity to me, so I don't feel quite as stressed. But the Pepsi is just, you're just free. You can do whatever
Yeah,
you want,
yeah,
and it's still equally as beautiful.
yeah.
It's
It is a
really,
gorgeous place.
yeah, it's physically challenging. It's a smaller event where I just love that race.
Hmm.
And so I usually cap the season with that. Anyway, this year I'm gonna try the North Shore 100K Classic too.
Oh, I saw that. That's coming up. So you're going to give it, isn't this the initial one?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the inaugural. Um,
Inaugural. Yeah. So you'll be a founder.
I guess I will.
There you go. That's amazing. Yeah. If I recall, is it 100 kilometer or 100 mile?
K
100,
kilometer.
kilometer. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Only
Yeah,
61 point whatever miles.
I know.
Yeah, that's amazing. So tell me about, like the traditions around Berkey Week for you. Again, I'm not certain because you've got so many different things you do during the year, but are there any special traditions that you do, like the way where you stay and the
Mhm.
routines that you go through with music or, groups of people that you hang out with?
Yeah. I married my husband who had been a Nordic coach for Ride and Glide, which is where I met him.
Hmm.
Um, and he had such a solid, amazing Birkie cabin location through his group of friends that we started going with his group of friends, which is right on the Telemark trails, right off of Nordmore Road.
Nice. Okay.
And this is a group that goes back from when my husband first started racing, like really, really long time ago. When he moved here, he came here for grad school. And so young guy, and then he started working at General Mills, and it's a group of old General Mills employees.
Mm,
Um, and so we always go to the same cabin. There is sort of a more rotating group, and there's generations now, like
yeah.
second generation, third generation. So that has started to evolve. But it's pretty much the same crew since I started going. A little bit of changes here and there. We all have assignments for our meals. We all like, sit around and talk stretch. I mean, like
Hmm.
there's the full spectrum. There's the people that are just there to enjoy it and do like a Cordy. And then I mean, I'm like a wimpy elite female compared to another one that's in the cabin
Oh,
who's about
really? Wow.
30 years younger than me and like just solidly very, very fast. And her husband is also really, it's just a fun group of people who all love to ski.
That's wonderful.
So we share meals. We all have assignments after I mean, like morning of, I'll probably run down the hill so we can ski to the start and
Hmm.
warm up. I mean, I used to warm up with people, but it seems like the people are too fractured. So just do a little warm up and then head out and race. And at the finish, my mom used to come with the kids. So my mom, like I said, had a place in Bayfield. We would bring the kids up there the day before, drive down that night, and then stay at the cabin. Now the kids stay with us, and my mom doesn't come to Main Street anymore, but she used to wait on Main Street with the kids, which was
Oh,
always
fun.
fun. And then we'd always go to the Angler for a brat and a beer.
Yeah.
Now we've had a few years of kind of weird weather, but the Angler is no longer part of the 100% we're going to do that because my mom doesn't come anymore.
Yeah.
She's the real drive behind the brat. So just kind of standing on Main Street and cheering for everyone else.
Yeah.
And then heading back to the cabin and just relaxing.
Do you wax in the cabin yourself or do you have your skis waxed for you?
Typically, I wax in the basement of the cabin myself.
Okay.
I'll start. I mean, I'll do a lot of investigating and get the layers going like
Yeah.
this week. Like even now, I just was talking to, I have two kids doing the Cordy, and I'm like,
Hmm.
"Are we ready? Can I start stripping your skis? Should we get this rolling?" I'd like to do it now because I work full time.
Yeah.
It's not that fun for me to stay up late at night doing this stuff.
Is everyone skating in your house? Is everyone skating or?
No, my daughter is a senior in high school and she loves classic. So she's
Okay.
going to classic Cordy. My son is 15. He's 10th grader. He's going to skate. My
Okay.
husband is going to skate. Yeah,
And you're going to skate.
I'm going to skate.
When you do the waxing, is it a camaraderie in the cabin or do you secretly get a different wax than that young lady who's going to be faster
No,
than you?
they are very generous. Those
That's
two,
good.
it's a couple. They're very generous with their intel,
Yeah.
what they know.
Isn't
But
that it? It's you got to have the person to get the intel.
yeah, they do wax testing and they share with me. I mean, the one I would say negative to that is that it makes me doubt my own decisions and then you're always like, did I do the right thing today?
Hmm.
But they will share. Like I could do everything but top coat and then I can bring like an assortment of top coats that I might think that the local shops are recommending, but not I won't do it right until I talk to them.
Hmm.
They are much more knowledgeable than me.
So thanks for coming on. I mean, it's you probably can hear in my voice. It's like I'm really interested in to hear kind of how you do it because when I've never been that good of a skier, and so when I kind of realize, I mean, I've always understood that you have to be really dedicated year round to be an elite skier, but it's been interesting to me to hear your take on it and how it works. And is there anything else that you'd like to share with listeners about Birkie, the Birkie week, getting ready to do your best on that day, or even for some people just to finish?
When I was preparing for this, I was thinking about anything that I've learned from the Birkie. The Birkies taught me a lot, and I think it's that personal growth comes from challenges. Like we learn the most in the times where we feel the worst, and so like even if it's feels like a really very, very difficult. I mean, because I've also coached, and I know that Nordic can be very difficult and very physically challenging. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about your worldview, and you learn a lot about how to move forward. And I think that piece of it is just so. I have so much gratitude for that piece that comes back at you. And so then the next piece is like, so persist because it will and improve. It improves as long as you continue to try. And that's true of, anything, but, I like sport as a metaphor for life. We will, there's peaks and troughs throughout the race. There's times where you're going to feel really solid and like, oh yeah, my skis are gliding so well. And then there'll be a time where you're falling off the back of this person and saying, oh God, what's happening? I don't know. I really have to pull myself out of that headspace and stay in the moment, Anyway, it's good. That's what I would say. The Birkie it can bring so much to so many different levels of skiers that it's important to just take away those simple lessons.
That's really well said. Thank you so much for saying that. Well, thanks, Kitty, and I really appreciate you coming on and giving this perspective. And it's really been enjoyable to meet you. And good luck on the weekend, and good luck all year with all the training that you do.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Good luck to you too.
Thanks for listening. Please check out the podcast notes to see links to the Birch Leggings Club and the Birkie website. If you've skied a combination of 20 Birkies and or Korties, I encourage you to join the Birch Leggings Club. If you'd like to tell your Birkie story, please contact me, John Peterson, at my email listed in the podcast notes or by filling out the guest application form linked there. Please subscribe to our program wherever you get your podcasts and leave a review. You can also text us directly from your phone or computer using the quick link in the notes to let us know how we are doing.